Lesson 5-4, Adding Mixed Numbers. The main focus in this lesson is you're going to be able to write a mixed number as an equivalent fraction and explain the solution. Then I want you to share strategies for changing mixed numbers into fractions greater than 1 and learn to add mixed numbers with like denominators. And finally, you'll solve number stories with mixed numbers. But first, let's start with our mental math and fluency. Represent the fractions as decimals. 1/10. That should tell you that the number 1 needs to be in the 10th spot, so you should have written it as 0.1. The first place after the decimal is the tenths. 3/10. Again, the number 3 needs to go in the 10th spot, so you should have it 0.3. And finally, 9/10. The number 9 needs to be in the 10th spot, so it should be 0.9. You're going to need your fraction circles to do the following problems. It says use the fraction circles or the number line poster, which is hanging in our room, in the middle window over on the wall, to solve this problem. 2 1/4 equals how many fourths? Well, one way to look at this problem is, whatever the denominator is for, you should realize that a whole equals 4/4. So in order for me to have 2 wholes, I would need to have 8/4, because 8 divided by 4 is 2. And then I have one more fourth, so I'm going to need to add that fourth to the 8/4. Remember, we add the numerators. 8 plus 1 is 9, and our denominator stays the same. So 9/4 is equal to 2 1/4. If you were looking at the circles, you should have realized that if the red circle is the whole, you can show 2 1/4 by doing 2 red circles and 1 yellow. Then we would replace the red circle with 4 yellow pieces because the 4/4 equals the whole. And then again, when you count the fourths, you would come up with 9/4. Look at the following problem. It reads, the cafeteria had 2 3/5 tubs of grape jelly and 1 1/5 tubs of strawberry jelly set aside for breakfast. How many tubs of jelly were there in all? The best one to do this is to draw it. This is a tub of jelly. This is a tub of jelly. Okay, I used 2 tubs. This other hole here says 1 more tub, so when I add that together, that'd be 3 tubs. Now I'd add my fractions. 3/5 plus 1/5. Well, the bottom number, 5, tells me that that's how many pieces this would be divided in. And remember, I'm approximating this because I'm not drawing very well. And I would use 4 out of the 5. So how much would I have in all? 1, 2, 3, and 4/5 tubs. 3 4/5. If I was figuring it as a mixed number, each one of these would be equal to 5/5, because that's what our denominator originally started with up here, was fifths. So this would be 5/5. The next one would be 5/5. My final one would be 5/5. And finally, again, this would have equaled 4/5. When I add those together, the numerators, 5, 10, 15, 19. And the denominator stays the same because it is already fifths. That's how that is done. You could have used, again, the fraction circles for that, and you would have used the red fraction circles to represent the whole numbers and the green fraction pieces to equal a fifth. And when you would have put them all together, you should have come up with the same answer as I did. Solve the number story on this screen and next one. Use different strategies for each one. I want you to turn to your math journal, page 162. This is going to be an assessment check. I am going to do number 1 with you, and by doing number 1, you should be able to do number 2 on your own. It reads, Balram drew a line segment 2 1/4 inches long, and then he made the line segment 1 2/4 inches longer. How long is the segment now? Fill in the whole box. Well, the whole box, we're going to be looking at how long is the segment now. We're going to be looking at that in inches. So in your whole box, you should write the word inches. The number model for what is known, well, I know I have 2 1/4, and if he made it 1 2/4 inches longer, I'm going to be at 1 2/4 inches. So one way to solve this would be simply add the whole numbers first. 2 plus 1 is 3. Now the fractions, 1/4 plus 2/4 equals 3/4. So 2 1/4 equals 3 3/4. Again, what's another way to solve it? Well, I could have got out my fraction circles, and remember, the wholes would be the red. So it said I needed 2 wholes and then a fourth, so I would have had my fraction yellow piece out. There's 2 1/4. And then I would have had 1, that would have been again the red circle, and then 2/4, which would be, and remember I'm carefully trying to draw this and so it's not perfect, would be 2 fraction yellow pieces. When I add that, again, I have 1, 2, 3, and 3/4 pieces. Let's write that as a mixed number. The number 4 denominator is telling me that I could divide all of these into 4 pieces. So 3 3/4 equals 4, 8, 12, 13, 14, 15, and once again, my denominator stays the same, fourths, because that's how many I divided the wholes into. And how did I know to divide them into fourths? By looking up here at the problem and seeing that the number 4 was already given as the denominator. Go ahead and finish page 162. Try to do the rest of the page on your own. Then bring it back to me or Mrs. Voorhees or the pair in the room and make sure that we check this for you, because this is an assessment check-in. Stop or pause the recording now and do that page, please. When learning how to do something new in mathematics, such as adding mixed numbers with like denominators, would you rather learn just one method that works all the time or learn several methods that work all the time? It's asked you to explain, but I want you to think about something. If you learn how to do something mathematically more than one way, you have different options for learning how to come up with that answer. So that way, if you're looking at it and you're struggling one way, hopefully another way will click and you'll think, wow, I get that now. So learning how to do something multiple ways is a good thing. Once I've corrected page 162 for you, I want you to do Math Journal page 163. I'm going to read some of the problems to you in case you are not able to read them or struggling a little bit with what it's saying. So in Math Box 1, it says decompose 3/8 as the sum of unit fractions. And letter B says write a different equation to show 3/8. So I'm looking for multiple ways for you to show that number. Again, you should be in Math Journal, page 163. Pause the recording and make sure you're there. Now I'm going to read problem number 2 to you. It says, a milk truck's tank holds about 6,300 gallons of milk. If the first dairy farmer has 948 gallons of milk to be picked up, about how many more gallons can the tank hold? Show your work. Well, you should be thinking, if it can hold 6,300, and now I just put in 948, I'm going to need to subtract that number from the 6,300 to figure how many more gallons the tank can hold. Pause the recording, figure that answer out, then look in your math journal at the conversion chart and ask yourself how many quarts that would be. Number 3. The school raffle raised $197 on Monday, $123 on Tuesday, $81 on Wednesday, and $56 on Thursday. How much money did the raffle raise on these days? Again, show your work. So you're adding them up to find the total. All 4 numbers. Circle those 4 numbers, line them up, add them, and write your answer here. Pause the recording until you finish that problem. Number 4. Write the fraction, decimal, and words for the value shown. So you should be looking at how many of the cubes are filled in. Write that as a fraction, then as a decimal, and then write it in words. Pause the recording now and do that math box. And finally, you need to fill in the missing fractions on the number line. Don't forget, you can count the sections. From 0 to the first one is 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, and then 5. Now you know that 5 is your denominator because that's how many sections that number line is cut into. Pause the recording now and finish this page. Go up to the answer key, look at the answers, and if you had any of them wrong, please bring it to myself or Mrs. Voorhees so that we can show you what you should have done to get it correct. Once you've corrected Math Journal page 63 and made sure that you had all the answers correct, you are going to go to the file folder and get Math Masters page 199. I'm going to read the problems to you so that you can work on them independently. So pause the recording, rewind it if you need to hear it again to complete this page. It reads, solve the number story on this screen and the next and use a different strategy for each. The art class had a box filled with balls of yarn. The students use 6 2/3 balls for a project. There are now 6 2/3 balls left in the box. How many balls of yarn did the art class start with? Well, if you used 6 2/3 balls for a project and there's still 6 2/3 left in the box, you are going to need to add those together. So write the number model, add them. In the whole box, you would write ball of yarn because that's what it asks, is how many balls of yarn did the art class start with. And then C says, one way to solve a mixed number addition problem is to, remember, you can write it as a mixed number or as a fraction. Pause the recording now and do math problem 1. Math problem 2. Mrs. Myers is growing vines along the sides of her house. On the west side, the vines are 2 4/10 meters tall. On the east side, the vines are 5 8/10 meters tall than the ones on the west side. How tall are the vines on the east side? Again, if one is 2 4/10 tall and the other one is 5 8/10 taller, you're going to be adding those together. What's the whole? This is how I'm going to know if you are listening to the videos, because the whole is 1 meter.